Alright guys, so in this video we're going to create a new component. We're going to create our navbar component, and we're going to look at props as well. So I'm going to clear up a bunch of this stuff within our main app component. We don't need this stuff right here. It was just to show you an example. We'll just put an H1 for now with hello. Okay, and I had my browser zoomed in before, that's why it was so big, if you were wondering. Now I'm going to create a component. So in the source folder, I'm going to create a folder called components. Now it's up to you how you want to structure your components. Sometimes people will put just all the component files in this one folder. I like to break it up, especially if you have quite a few components. So I'm going to create another folder in here called layout. And inside layout, I'll create my navbar component. Now common convention is to use an uppercase, begin your file name with an uppercase. So uppercase N navbar.js, and we can create our component. Now I'm going to start off with a class-based component, and then I'll talk about state in a little bit and functional components and the difference and all that. But we're going to start off with just using kind of the same, syntax class-based component. Now, instead of typing it out, I can actually use my ES7 React Redux snippets extension. If we go down to, let's see, right here, React components, we can generate all types of formatted components, class-based. We can export up at the top, or we can export at the bottom, which is what I like to do. We could do functional components, arrow function components. So the one we're going to use right now is RCE, which is going to be a class-based component that exports at the bottom. So let's do RCE enter or tab, and it just creates a class. The name is going to be based on your file name, and then it exports at the bottom. All right, so in here I'm just going to put for now just let's do an H1, and we'll just say navbar. And I'm going to go back to app.js, and I want to bring this in, so I'm going to import navbar from, and then the file, which is in components / layout / navbar. And then to insert it, we can just simply put in basically a custom tag with our component name like that. So if I save and I go back, we get our H1, okay, or we get our component that has an H1 in it. So I'm going to add a couple things here. I don't want to return a div. It's actually going to be a nav. And I'm going to add a couple classes using class name. We want navbar, and I'm going to give it a background with BG primary. So if we go ahead and save that and take a look, we get this. And the reason it looks like this is because of our CSS file. If you were using Bootstrap or some other framework, you could use those classes. If you had a custom CSS file that you created, you could also use those. So I'm also going to use Font Awesome because I want to use a little logo here. I'm going to use a Font Awesome icon. So if you go to fontawesome.com/start, you just need to copy this link right here. And we're going to put this right in public index.html. I'm going to put it right above the title. That way we can use icons. And right inside the H1, let's put that on a separate line here. And inside the H1, I'm going to put an I tag with the class of FAB and then FA-GitHub. And if I save that, let's actually put this, okay, so if I save that, we go back, you can see we have the little GitHub icon with navbar. Now, I don't want to use navbar as my title. I could change it here, but I want to show you how to use props. Props are basically properties that you can pass into a component from outside. So in our app.js, where we have our navbar, we can pass in a prop, and I'm going to create one called title. And for the title, I'm just going to put GitHub Finder, which is the name of our application. So I'll save that, and it's not going to make any changes yet because we haven't used the prop that we passed in. In order to use it, okay, I want to go wherever I want to put it, which is right here, and I'm going to use my curly braces so I can put an expression here. And the way that inside of a class-based component that we access props is with this dot props, and then whatever the name of the prop in this case is, title. So if I save that and I go back, now you can see we get GitHub Finder. Okay, now I'm also going to use a prop for the icon. So I'm going to take this right here, this class name, and I'm going to pass it in as an icon prop, like that. And that way I can just take this, put some curly braces, and say this dot props dot icon. So if I save that, we get the same result. Now, what happens if we have our props right here, but we don't actually pass them in? Let's get rid of these for a second. So if we don't pass them in, we get nothing, and we may not want that. We might want something called default props, so something to show even if we don't pass anything in. So what we can do is in our navbar class, we can add above the render, we can say static default props, and we can set that to an object, and then whatever the props we want, like let's say title, and let's set this to GitHub Finder, and then let's set icon to fa-GitHub. So now, even though I didn't pass any props in, the default props should take over. So if we go back, you can see that that stuff is back. Now, whatever I pass in is going to overwrite these, right? So if I were to pass in a title of whatever, hello, and save, and I go back, that's going to overwrite the default props. Okay, but I'm just going to use the default props. So I'm not going to pass them in, but I'm going to give the developer the ability to change it by passing in an icon or a title, if that makes sense. All right, now in addition to default props, we have something called PropTypes. PropTypes are basically, it's basically type checking. It'll tell you if your prop should be a string or a number or an array or object or anything like that. So in order to use PropTypes, you want to bring it in. Now there's a shortcut we can use with our extension, which is IMPT, enter, and that's going to bring in PropTypes. And then the way that we declare these is down here. We can say static PropTypes, and then we have two props, title and icon. So let's say title. Now title is a string, so we want to say PropTypes. We want to use Pascal case here, and then say dot string, and let's say that it is required. Whoops, is required. Okay, and then we have our icon, which is also a string, so PropTypes dot string dot is required. All right, so if I save that, everything should still be okay. Let's open up our console here. Now what I want to do is pass something in that is not a string, and you'll see that it'll tell us that it's wrong. So I'll go into my app component and just temporarily create, let's just say const, I don't know, we'll just create an array of numbers. All right, and let's pass that in as the title. So we'll say title equals numbers. Okay, now if I save this and I go back, we're going to see this warning over here that says failed prop type, invalid prop title of type array, that's what we passed in, supplied to navbar, but it expected a string. Okay, so we're going to get this warning. It's still going to compile and it's still showing, but it's going to give us this type check warning. Okay, so it's a little like using TypeScript or something like that. Now, if we were to change inside navbar the title from string to array, then it's not going to throw the error because we're looking for an array and that's what was passed in. Okay, but I'm just going to put that back to string and just get rid of that just to show you how that works. All right, and since we have is required, I mean, we're not getting an error or a warning because we have default props, but if I were to get rid of, let's say, the title, and you'll see it'll actually show down here. Wait, numbers is never used. Oh, let's get rid of that. All right, so we'll save that. I guess it's not showing down here, but if we go to our console, you'll see that title is marked as required, but the value is undefined. Okay, so I mean, your application, of course, will work without using prop types, but you definitely want to, just to make your application more robust, so you know that things are the correct data type. Your props are the correct data type. Okay, and we'll be using prop types throughout the whole course. So that's it. We have our navbar components. Obviously, we don't have any links. All we're going to really have in this particular application for navbar links is the home page and the about page. But we'll get to that when we get to the React router. All right, thanks guys. I will see you in the next video.